Hello, all of you beautiful mammals out there. This is Gamer Shark, and I'm proud to bring you today's episode that will be based on Star Wars Battlefront. Now, since this is my first episode, just so you guys know ahead of time, I'll be talking about video games, reviews on video games, just video game stuff in general. So, for future reference, yeah, now you know. Now, let's get to it. Now, Star Wars Battlefront, big AAA title. Lots of people are excited for it coming out next pretty much in a month, a little under, and it's coming along with the new Star Wars movie that, wow, really looking forward to that. Anyways, about the video game, so there's a lot of hubbub, a lot of rustling of the dust going on because of the beta, or what most of us would call a demo, because that's really what it felt like when you're releasing a beta like that a month ahead of release. It's the game's pretty much put together, not a whole lot that can change. So anyways, to talk about the release of Star Wars Battlefront, now DICE is making this game, and I think a lot of people are worried about, when I think back to Battlefield 4, the launch, the horrible launch it had, I think a lot of us were thinking that Battlefield was going to be the COD killer. Boom, Battlefield 4 comes out, completely ruins the trust of a lot of people. And the same thing happened with, for all of you Xbox people out there, the Halo series that came out, I can't remember the name for it. I mean, it completely flopped. Wasn't even playable for a long time multiplayer-wise. But in the beta, 9 million people played it, and I feel like that's a good indication that we're not going to have such a messed up launch when it comes out. I think DICE have got their ducks in a row this time around. Now, one of the big complaints about this game coming up is that there's no campaign. That's right, no campaign. It's going the old Titanfall and Evolve route. Now, this could be good, this could be bad. Now, here's my opinion. I mean, a lot of people think that since Titanfall and Evolve kind of just died out, that the same thing will happen for Star Wars Battlefront. Here's my theories on how that won't happen, how Star Wars Battlefront will last for a bit longer. I'm not sure how much longer, but probably till the next one comes out, or I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But there's a lot more modes in Star Wars Battlefront. You have Walker Assault, Droid Run. Wow, I can't even remember all of them. All I know is that there's quite a few. You have dogfights, so it's not just player v player. There's space battles. There's a combination of vehicles and players, and then there's just players, and then there's heroes versus heroes. Just a whole lot more going around. And then they have the introduction of star cards, and star cards add a lot more variety into the gameplay. And I felt, even in the beta, there was only like 7 star cards that were out, and I felt like it added quite a bit of diversity, and we haven't heard anything on how many there's going to be on release. Even if there's like, I hope there's more, I hope there's around 100. But if there's like around 100, that'll be pretty good. I felt like it added to the gameplay. I've never really seen anything like that in a game. I know Halo's coming out with rec packs, not even the same thing. I know in Titanfall I had burn cards, didn't really get into those, and I know a lot of people like those. I never really used them, but star cards just seem a lot more intuitive in this game. And another new feature in this game compared to a lot of multiplayer games that you're seeing today is like you pick up the abilities. You pick up it's not so much randomly generated in the map, but basically like a little power up. They'll either give you a hero, some type of special weapon like a smart rocket or an orbital strike, or a vehicle. Now, there's a lot of controversy on that and how people are how they feel like they're missing out on the Star Wars experience of seeing an X-Wing in the hangar and jumping in it and flying it out of the base. And I can kind of see why people miss that, but this is more of an arcadey game, and I feel like that picking up a power-up is a lot more arcadey feel, and that's really going to appeal more to your general audience instead of having like a kill streak where you have to go on like a 15 kill streak to play Luke or Darth Vader. And some people may never get that, and you're missing out. So I feel like this is a good different turn that they're taking here. I don't think people really have a problem with it. Maybe they do. I always found that if there's a vehicle, people just tend to rush for it. And it's kind of the same thing with the power-ups. Once we started to learn where they'd come in, people would just kind of rush for them. If he had a jetpack which is a star card, which is a great star card, by the way. You could jump there really fast and get it before other people. But anyways, it's different, and it's different in a good way. And so one of the big the big things in the beta was the Walker Assault mode, and a lot of people were saying how it's completely unbalanced. It's Rebels can never win. Empire just destroys them all the time. And now, when I first got first day of the beta, Friday night, I was playing it. Never won once as a Rebel. Horrible. I was so mad. They played it for 5 hours, nothing. And then the next day, Saturday, I won one, and it was just woo, woo, super pumped, jacked. It felt good. And I think you get the same rush when you beat a level in a really hard video game. People playing Bloodborne, or if you're playing Halo on Legendary, stuff like that. You gets your blood boiling. But come Sunday, more towards the end of it, with the way the star cards worked, and I know it required a lot of teamwork for the Rebels, but I found out going on that it really, as long as the people knew to focus on the AT-ATs when the shields went down, and to make sure the satellite uplinks were on as long as possible, it generally went pretty well. And if you got an orbital strike as a Rebel and you saved it till the AT-AT's shields were down, it would do 75 damage if you could get that. Okay, so point wise, 75%. So there's 100 points of health for it. It would do 75 points of damage on an AT-AT, just the orbital strike. So if you could get one guy who finds that power up, save it no matter what. Wait for the shields to go down, and you'll wreck face. And a really important thing too is having either an ion grenade or the iron boost, which makes your weapon do more damage to vehicles. I felt those were really important. And even the sniper rifle did 1 point of damage alone to it. And if 20 guys shoot all their snipers at one, that does 20. Bam. So I felt like it was more balanced than people and maybe even DICE thought, because when people started figuring that out, I felt like, at least the groups I was in, I was winning more as the Rebels than the Empire. And another key thing to it was, so there's two walkers, and there's basically 3 different sections where you had chances to defeat them. And you had to make sure you got rid of one of the walkers before the third and final round, because that is when you are the most open, and those walkers can just go in on you. And another thing that people really didn't utilize was the air combat. And I felt like if you could get the air support, you could do so much damage to the walkers, especially with the A-wings, not so much the X-wings, and then the Y-wings with that classic, I can't think of what it's called. Anyways, the rope that you wrap around the legs to instant kill for an AT-AT at the end. So if they fix that a little bit more, because the way it works is really weird. You kind of got to balance this thing in there. It's like a little mini game that you go into. It's kind of stupid. So I feel like if they fix that, it could really balance it out too in itself. I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with any of that, since teamwork really isn't a thing that you see in shooters today. And plus that whole common sense of, I don't want to say common sense, but if you have the prior knowledge of, save an orbital strike, everyone has to focus fire. This is a really kind of a generalized game, so people aren't going to know that. So they're definitely going to have to fix it to appeal to the masses. But I think personally, it's pretty good. The one thing that they have to fix, though, is the spawns. For the Rebels, they were kind of stupid. I hope they have enough time to tweak that before it. Nothing major on that front, just tweaking it. And the aerial gameplay, when it comes to that, you would just see people just bomb dive off the vehicles, because they didn't know how to use them, or didn't want to get in, give up and just crash it into whatever and try and kill. And I don't know, a lot of people don't like the way it controls, and I really couldn't find a problem with it as far as on console. I think a lot of people played it on PC, so I don't know how the mouse and keyboard went. I can see how that would be totally different, but as far as I felt like with the controller, I felt it felt pretty good. I'm a pretty big stickler for that. For example, in Battlefield, I sucked. I couldn't fly a jet. I couldn't fly a helicopter. Nothing. But in this, I felt pretty confident. I know when I was the Empire and I got in a TIE fighter, I felt like I could do some pretty good damage. And I know how in Battlefront you can't really do much as a jet to a ground troop, but I felt in Battlefront in the beta, people would kind of group up in certain areas, and if you could shoot your rockets or just kind of get a good spread going, and then you could kill one or two guys, and that was good. I mean, most of it came for as Empire, you wanted to destroy their air support so they wouldn't do damage to the AT-ATs, and Rebels, you wanted air support to do as much damage as you could to the AT-ATs. So I mean, it played a fairly big role in there. Really looking forward to dogfight. Don't think they'll change the aerial combat that much. I don't think there's much to change. I felt the vehicles were fairly balanced in general. I think a lot of people may have felt the AT-ATs were a bit overpowered, but their heads move pretty slow when you're aiming. Once again, I think the main thing is the spawns, because if just a rebels getting a really bad spawn, you could just boom, 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 and just lay down some fire on them, and they would be trapped essentially. But I felt like it was pretty well rounded overall. A thing coming up with the game too is the controversy, along with the campaign, is the price. Not just the game, but the DLC that's coming up. $50 of DLC. A lot of people aren't too happy about that, and I can see why. You're basically paying for another game. But, games have been $60 for a long time, and this is probably the best looking game that has ever released on a console ever, and definitely one of the best sounding. I mean, golly, the sounds when you're playing this game makes you feel like you're in a Star Wars battle, and it is so key. And the way everything looks, how they use the laser scanning technology to scan the real props in the movies, it was just, I was watering from the mouth just playing this game. It was amazing. And so that's expensive, that isn't cheap. And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't have a campaign, is because they put so much money and time into making it sound and look gorgeous that they couldn't really, I can't really defend a campaign that much, because I know Titanfall kind of did a weird multiplayer campaign thing that was stupid, and that like people would talk while you're playing and you wouldn't really pay attention. If they could do some sort of a cutscene, some voice acting that you'd hear before, I would be a little bit better. But I don't think that they could have done a full-fledged campaign to really show off how this game, looks and feels and sounds. That would have been amazing, but I think that was just asking for a bit much. But I think they could have done at least something. Kind of a loss there. I think when Battlefront 2 eventually comes out, we'll get it then, hopefully. Looking forward to that. So as far as the DLC goes, I mean, a lot of people have to step back and realize, okay, so it costs a shit ton to make this money, make this game. Oof, make that money. It won't be hard to make money from this game. But so the DLC is pretty expensive, and I think that has to do with the licensing that comes into this game. They have to pay to use all that Star Wars stuff, and that's gonna slice the money they get from it a lot. So they kind of have to finagle a little bit and make this DLC. They have to make it worth the $50. They haven't said anything about it, and if you're thinking about getting this DLC, don't. Even though I really want to, just don't. They haven't talked about it at all. You're basically putting $50 into something you have no idea, and that's just not good practice with money and financials in general, so don't do it. But I think another reason why it's looking pretty pricey, I mean, if I really think about it, people put a lot more money into other games, so maybe it's not as big of a deal as we think it is, but I think a lot of people are upset about the lack of what they wanted from this game to begin with either Galactic Conquest, which, that would have been like a different game entirely, and the lack of a campaign, and maybe like people wanted the Clone Wars, all of this stuff, wham, just tons of it. It's not really realistic. They're trying to get it before the movie, trying to get it out. I think it's in the right place where it is right now. Anyways, there's no microtransactions in this game. And I know EA is looked upon as a bad guy a lot of the time, but this was really surprising to me, because I felt with the way the star car system works, I felt they easily could have done some sort of buy a pack of cards for this amount of money. Maybe it would have been a little bit pay to win. That sounds like it would be quite pay to win. But anyway, that seems like you would think something EA would do, and it would, trim the budget off of the DLC, so it'd be more, normal DLC pricing. But they didn't do it, and I think for a couple reasons is it would have been like a pay to win thing, and I think they knew that. And another thing is there might not be that many star cards, so like if they give you a pack, it may only be like 3 cards, and people are like, oh, I'm not gonna pay like $3, 3 cards, or something like that. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but also when it comes to the price of the DLC, and we don't know what's coming out, so whatever I say here, we'll have to see. But as far as the DLC goes, I think we can expect some pretty big expansions. I don't know if we'll get quite to a campaign, but I think we'll get battles in space. A lot of people are looking for that, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to hopefully having the Clone Wars in there. I would love the Clone Wars. I just want to play a droid and shoot some stormtroopers. I want to play a stormtrooper and shoot some droidicas, and they're rolling around and all of this crazy stuff. But I don't think that's going to happen, because they said they were going to focus on the original trilogy. And I think what's going to happen with this DLC as it comes out after the movie, I think the battles that we're going to see are going to be from the new movie. Coming out. And we haven't seen the new movie or really any big battle scenes from the movie. So I think this is a part where we got to be really open-minded about what's to come, because I know a lot of people want to go back and play old memories, but it's time for us to embrace the new ones. And as far as I can tell, this when you're in this game, it feels like you're in Star Wars. So I can't wait to play this game, and hopefully, when I see the movie eventually as it comes out, and if the DLCs are for the movie, to see the movie and to want to be in it, and then have this Battlefront game come out with DLC that is based on the movie, and then I can feel like I'm in the movie. That would just be fantastic. I mean, maybe not everybody is going to like the movie. Maybe people don't want that. Once again, you kind of got to move on. They already made a Battlefront game based on that other stuff, and you made your memories then. Time to make some new ones with the new game. And I know a lot of people who are like, this isn't the old Battlefront, or we want this to be more like Battlefield, or it's more like Battlefield, or it's more like Battlefront. People are flip-flopping all over the place on whether this new game, like what it's more like. I think people just need to let that go on what this game is like. It's its own new thing. And I think a lot of people forget the old Battlefield games, the mod, they created a mod so you could play Star Wars, and that's where the first Star Wars Battlefront came from. So Star Wars Battlefront was always kind of a reskin of Battlefield. I hate to say it, but it's true. And so this is kind of a spiritual successor, and I know a lot of people kind of just wanted an HD remake of the old, Battlefront games. But once again, we just got to move on and, make new memories, new video games, and I think that's what's going to happen here. You just got to be open to this game, because if you are, you're gonna have fun. It's kind of, I want to say it's simple, but it really doesn't feel that way, at least in the game. And so we're moving on to the gunplay and like the skill gap for where this game is. Now, originally, when you're playing this game, at least in the beta, if you're in third person, which a lot of, you old dogs out there, well, I'm not old, but I definitely was playing in third person. I felt like there's a tactical advantage. Plus, there's a lot you're missing playing some shooter games and being able to see your characters, which is great in a game this beautiful. And we'll see how the customization comes across when this game releases. But to be able to see your own character, but then again, going into first person, like when you're in a vehicle or when you're out there, you really feel like you're in the game. But anyways, when you're in third person, the problem was in the beta is sometimes when you'd shoot, the lasers would be a little bit lower than the center of your reticle. And I think they mentioned something about fixing that, but you could really tell in vehicles, and you could tell sometimes as a player. And so they have to fix that, because there's a discrepancy between first person, third person shooting, kind of where it aiming. They just got to fix that. They will. AAA title, have to. Doesn't seem like that hard of a fix. Something little that they missed. so open for that. But as far as gunplay goes, a lot of people are used to, whether it's mostly Call of Duty or your shooter games, when you're in first person or stuff like that, you don't really tend to shoot from the hip when you're playing a game. There's more tactical advantage to scoping up and shooting. I'd say around 80-90% of people's kills in most shooters is, looking down the scope. Whereas in Battlefront, there really isn't an advantage to looking down the scope. Is you just get like a zoom, because the way the lasers work and the aiming system works, it's really more of an advantage to shoot from the hip. And I think that's something a lot of people are going to have to get used to. But I think it was pretty friendly, and for me, it felt new. which is just crazy as far as some of these video games coming out with these year-to-year Call of Duties and stuff like that. It felt new and it felt good. It felt good. And a lot of people were like, there's no reloading. That's stupid. I think it would be more stupid if there was reloading. It's a freaking laser gun. It's shooting plasma. Where do you think there could be some sort of a battery cartridge, but that's a pretty faulty gun if you have to change it after a couple of shots. It has the Gears of War, and I like it. It's not if you can time it right, you're pretty spot on, and it's not like overpowered or anything, or if you get it or if you don't. If you shoot too much, you'll overheat. But if you do it in a vehicle, I found it was a lot more important to not overheat it, because then you just kind of be stuck flying around or walking around, just mostly flying. The cooldowns, there really wasn't for an AT-AT or an AT-ST, but as far as the flying vehicles worked, you really didn't want to overheat it, because then you'd be stuck just flying around for almost between 5 and 10 seconds, and you're just a sitting duck out there. And also, going back to the flying, I think a lot of people didn't notice like the maneuverability. I heard some things about how it's a bit too fast. You could slow it down quite a bit, and then you could go really fast. So I felt like there's no real problem there. And then if you ever played Halo and were in a Banshee, you have kind of the jukes. You could use the D-pad on the Xbox. That's what I was playing it on, and you would do a barrel roll, or do some crazy aerial combat maneuvers to get out of something. And I didn't see enough people utilizing that. Once again, people are just dive bombing. I hope people stop. It looks cool, it sounds cool, but it won't stop. That's too optimistic. So the skill gap, I felt like there was a pretty good it's kind of a halfsy skill gap. Definitely more than a Call of Duty. I feel Call of Duty, you're the first person to see them kills. You could be amazing player and some noob just wrong time kills you. You could be pretty tactical in this game as far as flanking goes, being in a higher position, shooting down on people, catching them off guard, utilizing your star cards. Especially if I had a different, I hope they kind of changed the loadout system. I had a hard time changing it. Like you had two preset things, but two preset loadouts of star cards, two hands, like you had a hand of cards. But anyways, and I couldn't change it during the game, so I hope maybe they do something about that. But I would totally switch things up if I was on the Empire versus the Rebels. For example, if I was on a Rebel, I would use an ion grenade, the sniper, and the ion shot, because they're more for vehicles, and the Empire has a lot of vehicles, and the sniper, just because I felt like that was really good, and I didn't need the jetpack for maneuverability as far as the Rebel goes. And for the Empire, I'd have the jetpack to get to those vehicle power-ups quicker, and to advance faster before the Rebels could get into their turns, for example. Another thing that people had to utilize was the turns. If I was on the Empire and I got behind their enemy lines and got in one of their turns, wrecked. So Rebel people need to work on that, utilizing what they have for them. And they could focus fire the vehicles pretty easily with those too. So anyway, skill gap. So, and then I would have a frag grenade for the Empire, and then jetpack, and the bubble shield for advancing once again, so I could really push hard if I used the shield combo with the jetpack, and I felt like that was good. And once again, that's just an example of the star cards adding variety to the game, mixing things up a little. I really liked it, and it's something new, something I've never seen in a video game before. Looking forward to it. So I think just generally coming into this game, people need to have a more positive attitude. I've seen a lot of negativity on the internet after the beta. Lots of people getting mad. This is a cash grab, blah blah blah. I mean, to really try to nail down the cash grab, it's Star Wars. The licensing alone is gonna cost EA a chunk of change, and then the way this game looks and sounds is not cheap. And this is like the first time I've ever seen something like this in a video game. So I feel like this is a great start. This is a great one. This is the first Battlefront. I hope, and what I'm assuming will be the second one. As far as when the second one comes out, I know a lot of people are worried. Oh, EA, it's gonna be a year release. I think they could, but I don't think they will. I think the second one will come out when the third movie in the new trilogies will come out. So we'll have this movie, we'll have the next movie, and then the third movie, I feel Battlefront 2 will come out. It'll have a campaign, hopefully, and it'll be more based on the new games. So looking forward to that. I really don't think that they can do a year with this. They could, once again, then I'm totally wrong on all of this. Total cash grab. Damn me. So, yeah, but we just got to be more positive. I know EA is looked at as the boogeyman quite a few times, and they're ruining video games, but progression is progression, and this is a first step and something new that I think people are just gonna have to suck it up a little. I mean, it's not bad, am I right? It doesn't suck. I know for a lot of hardcore gamers, this probably isn't gonna be your jam, but this is gonna be a lot of other people's jam. I mean, that's a very small demographic. I know a lot of people feel like, yeah, hardcore shooter, but this game's pretty generally fun, and even I don't consider myself to be a hardcore shooter, even though I play an awful lot of them. When I played this game, in the beta at least, it was fun. And, I'd play it for a couple hours and go to something else. Oh, man, I'm getting really frustrated with this. Blah. And I'd go and have fun. I think that's the main goal of this game. And you don't see it as much as that in video games nowadays. It's that fun element. And then there's, I guess, a problem with this game, though, is kind of when the release is coming out. Because you have Halo 5 on Xbox. You have Black Ops 3. And Fallout 4, the big three coming out, and they're all coming out before Battlefront. So as far as the game's sales go, it's kind of, I feel like it'll be great, but on the other hand, I could be totally wrong, because people may just not have enough money then to buy this game. If this game is great, I can't defend this game as being awesome already, because we haven't seen it yet. It hasn't come out yet, and I feel like that's another people are jumping to. There's an awful lot of judgment for a game that hasn't come out yet. And I know it was a demo, but it was fairly minimal. We had 4 guns. 4. Pretty sure there'll be more than 4. I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I felt like there was more than 4 weapons in the series. And once again, they're coming out with new stuff. The Solus. I had that one lady with the presentation, the way she said it was a lot cooler than what I can do. But DICE is also making their own stuff. So, wow, coming back to the DLC here, and mine is just a little bit blown here. But they're making their own new stuff. So I guess don't be surprised if in the DLC they just come up with whole new battles and whole new situations. And I feel fairly confident in DICE. And I felt like this is the perfect company to handle Battlefront 2 as far as big battles go. Wow, big battles in Battlefront, crazy. Because Battlefield is a good game. I know Hardline is, and Battlefront 4's launch was bad, but they really supported it afterwards and made sure to fix it. And they really hung on to it. And I felt like it was going to be the COD killer. It looks like COD is going to live on. Normally I play it. I'll talk about Call of Duty another time. Not gonna bring up Call of Duty right now. Apologies. So yeah, check this game out. Don't buy the DLC. And there's this deluxe edition that gives you like 2 emojis and like some stuff. I would just skip out on that. Pre-order. Do it or don't. I don't think it's a big deal if you're really into it. I just try not to support it too much with the pre-order. If you get the standard edition, it's not that big of a deal. Just don't buy the DLC until you know what you're getting, because you're $50 on something we have no idea what it is. I mean, new maps. Wow, whew, crazy. But just wait for that. It's not going to be a punishment if you hold off on a season pass. So just be smart, be open-minded to this game. It's EA. Relax. It's going to be good. I think a lot of people want this to be amazing. Don't hype it up too much. It'll be a good, fun game. Looking forward to it. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll be coming out with something later. Tons of video game stuff on the horizon. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for the listen. Hope you enjoyed it. Contact me if there's anything you're specifically interested in. Thanks again. Have a great day, you beautiful mammals.